Prof. Zero. Okay, 1 second. Let's. Oke, kepada para partisipan dimohon untuk unmute mikrofonnya sebelum kita mulai. Bagi para partisipan yang masih mikrofonnya masih terbuka, mohon di unmute mikrofonnya selama acara ini berlangsung. Baik. We start again. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to all of us in Ambon, and good morning to our speakers in Germany. Welcome to the 7th Webinar Education Fair 2020 series. And today our webinars will go with the title Renewable Energy in Archipelago region of many small islands. We are glad to have you all with us today. And for your information, today's webinar is Pattimura University in partnership with Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Sciences. The Honorable Dean of Mathematics and Science Faculty of Pattimura University, leaders and also the lecturers of Mathematics and Science Faculty, all speakers of today's webinar, and all guests who attend today's webinar via Zoom and also via YouTube. I would like to say thank you so much for your participation in today's webinar. So ladies and gentlemen, it is time to begin our webinar. Therefore, I would like to invite the Dean of Mathematics and Sciences Faculty to give the opening speech. Bapak Profesor Dr. Peter Kakisina, SPD MSc, time is yours.
Baik, terima kasih. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar education fair with the title Renewable Energy in Archipelago region of many small islands. For your information, today's webinar is Pattimura University in partnership with Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Science. The Honorable Rector of Pattimura University, Vice Rectors of Pattimura University, Deans and Vice Dean of Pattimura University, Vice Dean and title leaders of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Pattimura University, the speakers, Professor Joachim Fischer from Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Science, and Professor Uta from Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Science, Andri Isaac Elim PhD from Pattimura University, and Dr. Iwayan Sutapa MSc from Pattimura University, and all guests of today's webinar education fair. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express a big thanks you to Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science and also International Office of Pattimura University for working hard so that today webinar education fair can be held. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know that each year to issue about climate change is surprisingly increased as a result of overconsumption of the limited energy such of oil and gas. In one hand, the overconsumption of those energy not only affecting the environment, but also affecting the mind and behavior of the human. I see that a human nowadays we becoming too dependent on those energy and have no awareness for the big risk in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, as the answer for the problem above, the academics, experts, and scientists in the world is competing in searching for new energy, which not only can be used but also can keep the environment healthy, so the dependency for the limited resources can be reduced. From the use above, then Pattimura University, as one of excellence's university with its mission to protect the environment, both in water and land, or known as Bina Mulia Kelautan, feels responsible to expanding the challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, Pattimura University sees that there are new energy that can be used in our country, Indonesia, especially in Maluku, since we are a region with 1,000 islands that full of natural resources. By both the knowledge and answer awareness, we believe that we can go much further in the future for better life. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the agenda, I hope that today's webinar will run smoothly and continuously, to that giving much benefits to all of us. Once again, I would like to say thank you to all speakers who has been willing to share and very important and beneficial knowledge for us through this webinar. I also would like to say thank you to the participants who has given their time to attend and participate in this webinar. Finally, by saying thanks to the Almighty God in officially open today webinar education fair with the title Renewable Energy in Archipelago region of many small islands. Thank you, and I hope you all enjoy.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will hand over the next session, which is the presentation session, to the moderator, Bapak Dr. Andus Philippus J. Pati, MSc, PhD. Therefore, to Bapak Philippus, time is yours.
Thank you, Parido. Hello, everybody. Good morning for Prof. Fischer and Prof. Brewer in Germany, and good afternoon for everybody. My name is Philip Pati. I am from Department of Physics, Pattimura University, and today I will be the moderator for this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have 4 speakers in this webinar. Prof. Joachim Fischer from Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Science, Prof. Uta Brewer from Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Science, Associate Prof. Henry Isaac Elim from Department of Physics, Pattimura University, and Associate Professor Iwayan Sutapa from Department of Chemistry, Pattimura University. In this talk, each speaker will give a 25 minutes talk, starting from Prof. Fischer to Prof. Sutapa. And after the talk, there will be a 35 minutes question and answer session. So for time efficiency, if you have questions, you can write them in chat And do not forget to write the name of the speaker, the question is for, and your name. If time allows, you also can ask questions directly to the speakers. The question can be delivered in Indonesia or in English. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start for the talk for the first speaker. So today speaker, the first one is Prof. Joachim Fischer. Prof. Joachim Fischer is the professor at Hochschule Nordhausen University of Applied Science. As an expert in the field of renewable energy, he has a lot of experiences. Some of them we write here. Research assistant at the Institute for Mechanical Process Engineering and Environmental Process Engineering at the TU Clausthal from 1989 to 1994. Speaker at the German Federal Environmental Foundation in the field of thermal use of biomass from 1994 to 1999. Head of the Biomass Info Center at the Institute for Energy Economics and Rational Energy Use, IER, University of Stuttgart, and at the Institute for Energy and Environment, GmbH, Leipzig from 2000 to 2003. Chairman of the German Energy Pellet Association from 2003, Managing Director from 2001 to 2006. Bioenergy Project Manager at Witthausen, Frick and Turk GmbH, Engineering Association from 2003 to 2008. And today, Prof. Fischer will give a talk under the title Biofuel and Future Mobility, Perspective and Constraints for Islands Communities. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Prof. Fischer. Prof. Fischer, you have 25 minutes.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Professor Patti, for the very kind introduction. And also I would like to thank all the organizers, especially also Professor Elim, for giving us and me the opportunity to participate in your webinar. It's a pleasure, it's an honor, and I hope that I can convey some information now via this webinar to the audience. In fact, I prepared quite a comprehensive sort of overview on this topic. So in order, as I'm the first speaker, I do my best to keep within the time limit. Therefore, I think I have to skip some of the slides. But as the informations I hope are available to all of the audience, at least I can give you and I can provide you with a sort of overview. And of course, we will have time for questions a little bit later. So as I have a nice assistant at Pattimura University who will try to help me, maybe you can start with the first slide with the next page, please. Or do I have it? Yes, thank you very much. Of course. Mobility. We all know that mobility is one of the key factors, of the important key factors in our 21st century societies all over the world. You see that actually more than 1 billion motor vehicles, there are heavy trucks are not included in this figure, are driving around our planet, and the number is increasing constantly. So of course, this is a huge amount of vehicles which are being used. And at the end of the page, you see that, of course, private transport is for many people of a huge interest because it offers freedom. I can travel at each time. I can travel with high flexibility, so I do not have to pay tribute to any timetables of railways, coaches, buses, or and so on. And of course, it has a high functionality. That means, for instance, I can go shopping. I can provide myself with all the necessities for my daily life. And so, of course, or I can drive to the office, to my job. So of course, mobility is of high significance. On the other hand, maybe if we just can switch to the next page, please. On the other hand, we also see the next slide. Is it possible? Yes, this one. On the other hand, we also recognize that, of course, this huge amount of vehicles, just another figure here in Germany, we have 80 million inhabitants and roughly 44 million private owned cars. So two persons per car. So we know that, of course, there are a lot of problems related to this increasing amount of mobility. This is a picture which I took when I visited M1 2 years ago, maybe a little bit with the romantic impression of a European coming to a tropical island with the nice beaches, the blue sea, palm trees swaying in the wind. Of course, this all exists on your beautiful island, but the first thing which I encountered was the traffic jam. So welcome to the 21st century. You see everywhere, even on smaller islands, in smaller communities, these problems are prevailing, and these problems mean high consumption of energy, high amount of pollution from the exhaust gases, and of course also with respect to climate change, the constant concern of how the carbon dioxide emissions and all other gaseous emissions from vehicles can be reduced. Yes, maybe we can switch to the next page, or even the better in the next page with the picture. It's easier. Then just skip this one, please. Next page, please. Yes, I have to mention that mobility or the traffic is a very large consumer of energy. About 50% of the oil, of the crude oil, which is being used on our planet, is being spent in vehicles, means in trucks, buses, cars, but also, of course, in diesel-driven railways. So therefore, we have a constant demand for other opportunities, for other possibilities. How can we come to a more climate friendly and environmentally friendly mobility? Of course, one attempt is being made in many countries to switch over to electric vehicles, yes, to come to battery driven cars which are using electricity, and by this, of course, do not produce any harmful emissions. The drawback of the situation is, however, that first of all, you have high opportunity costs. Switching from the conventional internal combustion engine to electrical vehicle means for the owner of such a vehicle that he or she has to buy a new one. So we have high costs. Not all people in all countries are able to spend this large amount of money, and in many countries like here in Germany, this is really an issue. Also now the government provides the buyer of an electric vehicle with high subsidies, about, yes, depends on the size of the car, 20 to 25% of the purchase costs are being granted. But again, this money has to be paid by the taxpayer. So here we have high initial costs, and we have also high amount of additional infrastructure. We need charging stations to charge the cars, and we need sufficient electricity. So in regions where already the electricity supply is fragile and leads to some serving problems that not all over the day sufficient electricity is available, an increasing demand, a higher demand of electricity from electric cars will lead to additional problems. Then we have also the distribution of the electricity. That means we need a stable grid to provide an increasing number of electric vehicles with reliable electricity. Just a rough figure, if you have 100 electric cars, then these cars demand for charging for an electrical power of about 1000 kilowatt or 1 megawatt. This is a quite considerable amount of electricity which has to be produced. And of course, electric vehicles only make sense if this energy comes from renewable sources. So if you use, for instance, oil to transfer it into electricity and then spend it in a car, then the global chain of, for instance, carbon dioxide emissions is poorer than if you just use the gasoline or the diesel fuel directly in a car. So renewable energy is also mandatory if you want to switch over from conventional to electric cars. This, however, this is of course viable, but however, takes considerable amount of time. And that is why biofuels offer us a possibility, especially in smaller communities, where we have not such an enormous demand for fuels as in a country like Germany. Biofuels offer a possibility to assist in this transfer process from the conventional mobility into a more environmental friendly mobility. For instance, as it is mentioned here, biogas is one opportunity to propel gas-driven cars, or of course also biofuels, and this is the core part of my contribution today. So maybe we can just move over to page number 8, so we can skip a few pages with some additional figures, but just to proceed, maybe the next pages, please. Yes, no, so, okay, maybe just a short remark. You see that also this transition process to electrical vehicles is a slow one. Yes, so we cannot expect that suddenly all people who are owning cars are switching over to electrical vehicles. And we must also take into consideration, I have to mention, that electrical trucks, for instance, which are necessary for distributing our goods, are very hard to construct. So here we have also limitations that electrical vehicles mainly are smaller passenger cars or smaller vans, but not the essential transport. Also buses, coaches or trucks are very hard to be propelled with pure electrical engines or just by batteries. So here also other solutions are necessary in order to keep our economical system, not only the global, but also the local system working and running. Yes, maybe the next page. Yes, and then we can skip this one. The next one, please. Paying tribute to these international considerations and problems and climate change problems, many people, many countries, sorry, as you see from this page here, already has implemented some national transport mandates, which are aiming at the fact that, for instance, the share of biofuels should be increased within the next years. So again, biofuels are offering the chance to switch over to a more environmental friendly mobility within a quite short period of time, as the conventional internal combustion engine and also our infrastructure, that means the filling stations, can be used further. So we do not have the sudden switch to a totally new system, but we have a smooth transition to a new system. Oh, yes, it was correct. Just the next page, please. But there are, of course, some challenges, some questions which are related to biofuels, which, of course, are familiar to most of you, I think. First of all, okay, the significant contribution. Of course, this is possible. Do they fit into a future energy system? Yes and no, depends on the type of biofuels. That there are, of course, biofuels, as we see a little bit later, which only contribute to a smaller extent, for instance, with respect to the reduction of greenhouse gases. Technological development and innovation is, of course, possible, and it is now recently also increasing in speed. Environmental friendliness of biofuels must be, of course, taken in consideration. Not each biofuel which can be produced is really or has a high benefit for the environment. There are some biofuels which offer quite a huge benefit, others only a very small benefit compared to the conventional ones. And of course, if you talk about biomass, always the question, is it really viable? Which means how much biomass is existing to produce biofuels without coming into conflicts with, of course, food and fodder production, which must be the main task for agriculture to supply us with sufficient food. And then if there is a possibility, we may also produce biofuels. Yeah, so this is, of course, the correct sequence. First of all, supply food, secure food supply, then maybe look how much biomass is available for biofuel production. Yes, maybe the next page. The next page shows what we call just one back. Yes, what we call the generations of biofuels. We have to read it from right to left. On the right-hand side, we have the so-called conventional biofuels. They are familiar to us, for instance, bioethanol and biodiesel. The disadvantage of both types of biofuels is that they are only using part of our biomass. For instance, in the case of bioethanol, if you're producing from sugarcane, then you're using only the sugar. If you're producing it, let's say, from a tropical plant like cassava, you're using the starch. So we have a lot of byproducts. The same is true for biodiesel from oil. Let's take the tropical palm oil, for instance. Okay, it's a very high oil content, but here we are only using the oil. So we are producing a lot of byproducts, and the yield, that means the amount of biofuel which can be harvested from a certain area. And again, the area is limited. We cannot increase significantly the available area of arable land. So here, of course, we have a limited yield on the area of land which can be used for biofuel production. However, these first generation biofuels also offer some advantages. The technologies for producing biodiesel and bioethanol are well known, and they can be also established and being used on a small scale basis. Especially island communities, we do not have an enormous demand for fuels for transportation. So maybe here, with respect to, let's call it a fleet of vehicles, buses, public buses, trucks, lorries, and so on, the choice for these conventional biofuels can be a very good option because again, here we have the technology on hand and ready to use. Yes, so not so much efforts are necessary, and these biofuels can also be produced on a small scale basis, regional, and not in large plants, like in the case of a typical oil refinery. However, we have other opportunities, and these I would like to address, at least a selection of them, within the next minutes. These are the so-called second or third generation biofuels. Second generation means mainly synthetic biofuels, where we now do not only use a part of the plant, for instance, the sugar, but the whole organic matter. And of course, if we're just leaving the biomass sector a little bit, we can also use waste material, organic waste or even plastic waste, but of course then it's not any longer biomass, for producing biofuels by means of these synthetic processes. I only selected two possibilities. Maybe we can start with the next page, please. Or we can skip this one, the next one. I can explain it also on this graph. So One possibility for synthetic biofuels is the so-called Fischer Tropsch synthesis. Basically a quite old idea dating back to the 1920s, where synthetic fuels are being produced in Europe, especially in Germany, from coal. This technology is still existing, for instance, in Southern Africa, where coal is being transferred via these processes into fuels. Of course, instead of coal, we can also use biomass. However, biomass is a little bit, let's say, more complicated than coal because the biomass is such a diverse raw material. If you just look at the variety of plants which you encounter in nature, you will see they differ with respect to their composition, how much sugar, how much starch, how much byproducts is being included. And so here we have still some challenges. The basic idea is that we are producing. You start on the left-hand side with the orange picture with the gasification process. That means we are producing out of the biomass or of our organic waste a gas. Then we have to process our gas. We have to clean the gas, especially from particles and tar, which still is a challenge. Yes, this sounds very easy, but practically this is quite complicated. And then we have, let's say, a clean gas, which then in the next step can be transferred via this synthesis process. You see at moderate temperatures and also from a technical point of view, moderate pressures into a group of fuels, be it gasoline or be it diesel or be it also methanol. So here we have a quite broad variety of products. We are not limited as in the conventional type of first generation that we can either produce bioethanol or biodiesel. That means sugar, bioethanol, oil, biodiesel. But here we have a broader variety of products. And we can also look into our demand side. So where is an increasing demand for specific fuels? For instance, if we phase out diesel engines, then we have a higher demand for gasoline and so on. So higher flexibility. Yes, maybe the next page. So this is explained. Maybe we can just skip the explanation due to our limited time. However, and please the next page. However, there are some problems with these so-called biomass to liquid fuels. That the production process by itself is quite complicated. Yes, from our colored boxes, it seems to be straightforward. But again, from a technical point of view, the problems are hidden in details. For instance, how to produce clean gas without losing too much of the energy of our gas. So to look into the efficiency of the process. Of course, it does not make sense if you have an efficiency from the biomass to the fuel of less than, let's say, 10 or 15%. So then it is not a viable option. So how can we come to a very efficient process chain? How can we improve the synthetic process? That means the production of these fuels. So here a lot of questions are still open, and many projects which started during the last, let's call it 15 years, failed because the companies who tried to implement this technology just disregard the problems if you transfer this technology from a small scale basis in a laboratory or a pilot plant into the large scale technological technological status. Maybe the next page gives also a sort of, maybe this one first of all shows the quality of these biomass to liquid fuels compared to conventional diesel. So just mention some of the red highlighted effects. You see, for instance, that the density and the fuel quality, which is expressed by the so-called cetane number, is more or less the same. So we can produce a fuel which can be used in conventional diesel engines, a benefit. we do not have to look for new engines, that we have some advantages, for instance, with the content of aromatic carbohydrates, which is 0. So we have lower emissions of harmful substances which are regarded as causing cancer, for instance, which are part of the discussion on the future of diesel vehicles. And we have also some other advantages which we can see on the next page. If you just switch over to the next slide. Yes, so this is a comparison between a conventional diesel engine and the same diesel engine in the same car is now being fueled with this biomass to liquid fuel, and it is being tested on a test rig according to the so-called European driving cycle. That means a standardized test procedure. And here the advantages of these green bars indicating the biomass to liquid fuels become evident. So you see a strong reduction in the carbohydrates, for instance, in the carbon monoxide, medium reduction. The particles, about 40% of particles can be reduced. But of course, if you just switch over to the right-hand side, we have no reduction in the carbon dioxide. So why? Of course, we do not change the internal combustion process. And as you know, if we want to burn a fuel, we need air. And as a byproduct, of course, if I have a carbohydrate, carbon and oxygen, I will produce carbon dioxide. So in the same engine, we cannot expect that we have a strong reduction in carbon dioxide by switching from one carbohydrate fuel to another carbohydrate fuel. However, please keep in mind, if you're producing this BTL from biomass, this carbon dioxide is renewable carbon dioxide, as long as we guarantee that the biomass which we're using for our fuel is regrowing in nature. So then we have this closed carbon dioxide cycle, and we have no additional effect to the climate or to the carbon dioxide balance in our atmosphere. And so we have a benefit for reducing climate change impact. But again, we cannot reduce just by switching from one liquid carbohydrate fuel to another one. We cannot avoid carbon dioxide emissions. Then we have to look for other systems, for instance, like fuel cell or the electric vehicle. Okay.
Yeah,
so
you have around 2 more minutes, Professor.
Yes, 2 more minutes. So maybe we can just have a look into the last part of my presentation. Maybe we can just skip this one, which shows this. Just one page back. I would also like to address another topic, which becomes more and more interesting. This is biofuels from algae. That means from aquatic biomass, which of course can be of very high interest for all island communities. We have the ocean at our in front of our door, so to say, and so algae offer high possibilities also for the production of biofuels, where we have different types. If you can just switch over to the next page. For instance, these microalgae like chlorella, you see, they contain quite a lot of oil and of carbohydrates. And as we learned until now, carbohydrates and oil are some of the basics for biofuel production. These microalgae, which becomes evident from the next pages, which we have to skip now, but again, I hope that you are able to have a look into the material later on. These microalgae offer quite high yields, so they are very productive in case that we can offer appropriate living conditions. That means sufficient sunlight in shallow water or in artificial systems. And of course, maybe we can go back 2 pages. Now, if you can go back to page number 25, sorry, I can just show you, if it is possible, that also these microalgae can be used for very different ways of producing biofuels. Or maybe we can also move on to one of the last pages where I sketched out on page number 39. This should be the end of my presentation. Sorry. Hello? Yes. Just at the end, page number 39, where I sketched out possible pathways, yes, this one, of how we can transfer, how we can process these aquatic biomass, this algae, to biofuels. You see, again, we have a broad variety of different processes. The problem, and this should be the last page, the next page, please. The problem is, however, that there are a lot of questions still open, a lot of challenges, starting from the cultivation to the processing, to the fuel production, which has to be answered before these aquatic biomass is really ready to use. So here again, we have still a long way to go, but it's of course highly interesting also with point of view of research and development, and especially in Asia, for instance, in Thailand, in Japan, of course in China, and also in India, maybe also in Indonesia. There's a lot of research work going on with respect to this algae, to this aquatic biomass. And from my point of view, this research is highly beneficial, especially for our island communities, because again, we have the resource, the ocean or the water on hand, and we have not a strong concurrence between the restricted area of land on an island, smaller or larger one, for producing biomass. But here we can rely on the sea, on the water, and so I think this pathway is highly interesting for the next future. And so there is of course a lot to say about algae and their possible use, much more than I can address now in these 25 minutes. But I hope that at least I can show you that there are of course different pathways for biofuels which we can introduce into our system quite easily, and that of course also biofuels are not outdated, but they are a very interesting part of our scientific world, and also for the practical world in future mobility. So from my point of view, it is really important and very interesting, especially also for our tropical island communities, to spend some thoughts on how, on a, let's say, realistic, reliable, and also long-term basis, biofuels can be integrated into our mobility systems. They cannot solve all problems, of course not, but they can help us to solve some of our problems in mobility. So thank you very much. I hope I didn't stretch the time limit too long. 25 minutes is not so much for such a comprehensive subject, but maybe this is also the starting point, and maybe there are other opportunities and challenges where we can discuss, opportunities, not challenges, only opportunities where we can discuss, where we can go into more detail with respect to this topic, as far as it is of interest to you at your university and to the students, to the audience which is listening to us today. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and later on I think we have some time for additional questions, which of course I try to answer as precisely as possible. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Professor Fischer, for such a great and important presentation, especially for us here in the island community. Ladies and gentlemen, we will move to the second speaker, and the second speaker is Professor Jutta Brewer. Prof. Brewer is a professor at the Hochschule Nordhausen, University of Applied Sciences. As a professional, she has several experiences, such as a research assistant Institute for Biotechnology Leipzig, senior scientist or head of research group at the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research Leipzig, UFZ, and project team leader BEC GmbH Biotechnic Kotten. Today, Dr. Brewer will give a talk under the title Biogas from Renewable Resources. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Prof. Brewer. Prof. Brewer, you have 25 minutes.
Thank you for your very kind introduction, and I will try to share my slides for the possibility to give you a nice view on biogas from renewable resources. And first of all, I will welcome you to my little talk, and as my colleague said, 25 minutes are not so much, therefore I will going into detail only for a very few facts. So let's start with a short preface. Biogas has become fashionable. That is my point of view, and also coming to the special problems in Indonesia, I will say simple biogas plants are intended to help solve the shortage of fuel problem. But a biogas plant can only help to solve the problems of the future if it works. It's clear. I think it's very clear. And the next view is the biogas plant must work in an economically and ecological optimized way to meet the demands of climate change. And let's rethink on renewable energy solutions in Indonesia. As you already heard in the first talk, renewable energy solutions, including bioenergy, need to be not only in Indonesia, but globally, low cost, clean, and geographically, as well as culturally appropriate fuel that meet the energy needs and are reasonably easy to implement and use. Biogas produced through agricultural waste is one viable alternative that can be implemented in rural and sometimes remote areas where many Indonesians live. And in addition, biogas provides greenhouse gas emissions mitigation benefits by reducing demand for conventional energy. This could be very interesting, and especially in Indonesia. And coming more into detail, we had to say potentially 2 million small biogas digester could be installed in Indonesia, equivalent to a reduction of 6.4 million tons CO2 per year, as estimated by an initiative called BIRU, a domestic biogas promotion program of a special NGO. This is a great number to my point of view. And meanwhile, the estimated potential capacity for large-scale biogas to electricity production is 2.6 gigawatt. And the co-benefits include reducing unmanaged firewood collection, helping manage animal waste, and providing biogas slurry as organic fertilizer. Overall, biogas offers promising practical and feasible alternatives energy options for Indonesia. If we know that facts, then we can envision a future with biogas, especially in Indonesia. And to know all the facts, we have to start with some basics. Sorry for this, but for me, it's necessary to know and to show you. Biogas is a clean and efficient fuel. Biogas is a mixture of 50 up to...
Sorry, Prof. Brewer, the slide is not moving.
Okay, then we have to come to another one, please. Maybe that is better. Then I take the PDF file, maybe without moving, but again, all facts are there. Coming back to our biogas problem, it's a mixture, a gas mixture. Half of them and a little bit more is methane. This is generated by anaerobic microbial degradation of organic substrates. In other references, we have the named anaerobic digestion fermentation, but it is an anaerobic microbial degradation.
Still not working, Prof. Brewer. the slide is just
Okay, how can we solve the problem?
so you do slide presentation.
I have here the screen, the share screen mode.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Philip, Prof. Maybe you can just click on the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the screen.
Where can I have the number?
On the left.
On the left-hand side.
Yeah. Left slide, you can see the
Here.
one. Yeah, just click on the number 1.
It's going down.
So?
The red one, just going down to the second one.
No, doesn't work or work.
Or maybe you can escape, just escape and share again.
I escape it and then make it again.
Yeah.
So let me say.
Mohon maaf Bapak Ibu atas technical issue yang terjadi. Kami mohon.
So,
yeah.
Can you see now? And when I
that's wrong.
Okay. Oh, good. Now we have. I hope we have solved the problem, and I will continue my talk.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry for interrupting.
Okay. We try it again, and I'm sure we get it. We have, in addition to methane, we have already CO2, carbon dioxide. You can see up to 45% traces of hydrogen sulfide. Therefore, besides there are traces, they are very important to know that they are inside the biogas and already nitrogen and carbon monoxide. The biological methane generation is a process which already occurs in nature, where wet organic material is available and free oxygen, on the other hand, is absent. That means we found that in the digestive tract of cows, wet composting plants, landfill, or flooded paddy fields. And anaerobic metabolism is not so clear to everyone, and therefore let's start with some fundamental view on the anaerobic metabolism. It is necessary to know all the facts for planning, building, operating, and of course for optimizing such very good technology. And we have to know that some families of bacteria are involved. First of all, mentioned are the methane bacteria, which are obligate anaerobic bacteria. That means they are only active under oxygen-free conditions. But under these conditions, the energy generation represents only 1/7 on the offset of the aerobic bacteria, and therefore anaerobic bacteria have a longer growth rate. This is necessary to know. And we have to know that the whole process consists of 3 phases. Sometimes we heard and read from 4 phases. Let me explain you that in the first phase, high molecular compounds like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are degraded to simpler compounds, monomers like amino acids, glucose, fatty acids, and solved in water. The second step is the acidification, where a second group of bacteria, the acid-producing bacteria, convert the solved compounds to organic acid. A lot of different organic acids. Let me mention butyric acid, propionic acid, uric acetic acid, and in addition, alcohol, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide. The third, and let me explain, mainly are divided 2 parts of the third phase, namely acetogenic phase and methane formation. The acetogenic phase is that phase where the compounds are converted mainly into acetic acid, and the methane formation is a finally phase. There the methane bacteria are active, and these bacteria are special and they can utilize only C1 and C2 compounds. Here is a picture, shows you the whole process and resulting in biogas. And as you can see here, the biogas consists here mainly half of methane and half of carbon dioxide. But as you see, it's not part after the other part, but methane and acetogenic bacteria act in a symbiotic way. That means the latter creates an atmosphere with ideal parameters for methane-producing bacteria will create. This means anaerobic conditions compound with low molecular weight. The former one use these intermediates of the acid-producing bacteria, and coming in one detail, without consuming these intermediates, and that means acid will accumulate, the pH value will reduce, and this results in toxic conditions for the acid-producing bacteria. Stopped here, the whole process and the methane formation goes down. In nature as well as in biogas plant, the metabolic action of different bacteria act in concert, that mean together. The next slide shows you the whole technology in a biogas plant. And at least we found one circuit on the left-hand side, starting with energy crops from agriculture, which need to feed the livestock, and the residues from livestock together with biowaste, and of course with energy crops are collected and supplied in the fermenter here. In the fermenter, the gas will be synthesized and the digestion residue will be formed. This digestion residue is collected in a separated storage aggregate, again to collect additional biogas which can be formed there. Therefore, we found here a closed circuit. On the right-hand side, we found the utilization of biogas. And you can see after collected biogas, we have to treat it, we have to purify it in order to use it by a combined heat and power station to transform to electricity and heat. And these both can use itself to promote its biogas formation in the fermenter. Another step deals sometimes more or less with that facts what my colleague talked to you in the first talk here today, with a detailed elimination of mainly CO2, we found biomethane supplied in natural gas network or as a biogas petrol station. In order to optimize, and to my point of view, this is necessary to work very economically and also ecologically, we have to know some important fact on the whole process. And I put 4 facts, mainly 3 facts, which we have to optimize. Let us come to the input material. Here, beside all the write down facts, the carbon content for the input material are very important. The second necessary and optimizable step is the conditioning of the substrate. And from my point of view, the comminution, the pre-treatment, the treatment of the substrates are necessary to have good prepared substrate for the third step, the fermentation process. Here, a little bit more facts or parameters are necessary to know: the temperature, the retention time, the mixing within the fermenter, and also it is necessary to add some substrate within the process. As a result, we get biogas or methane and already digested sludge. Starts with the substrate requirements, which are necessary to know. We can here look to the table first, which different substrate mixtures are compared regarding the methane yield. That means cubic meter methane per kilogram organic dry substance. And as you can see and can read here in the top of the slide, these substrates are already residues. Mainly, they are residues, byproducts from agriculture, commercial, industrial activities, and, important for Indonesia, also from households. And if we look to the numbers here in the table, we see that maize silage, grass silage, food waste are very good regarding the methane yield. But for our point of view, maize silage is the best one, because grass silage and food waste need a more or less detailed and long pre-treatment for give that methane yield. At the end of in the last row, at the end of the table, we found a number for durian fruit, fruit and organic material, what you already know. I will come to this number at the end of my talk. This is a number results from own investigations. The second mentioned here concerning the substrate requirements is that we need to know the composition of the substrate, because this is the main fact dealing or regarding the quantity of biogas and methane produced. It depends from the composition of the substrates. And in the table, we found the three main classes, protein, fat, and carbohydrates, which composed this mentioned mixture of substrates. And you can see fat gave the most here mentioned biogas yields, dealing with a long chain of carbohydrates within the substrate mixtures. But in the practice, we often not exactly know the definite composition of the substrates, and the other fact is the degradation is not complete. And beside the certain concentration of nutrients, we must know what kind of carbon-nitrogen ratio this substrate mixture have, in order to know what kind of or how much biogas we have to produce. And a well-known fact is what and how much trace elements are inside, because bacteria need them for growth. The second main parameter to optimize are the process parameter. And here are the temperature, a very important one. And you can see here on my slide the three known different possibility in which a biogas process can work. The thermophilic process results in a quicker metabolism and degradation, but it is often preferred at such high temperature if the substrate contains high level of fat, or if we have pathogenic microorganisms which shall be destroyed. The most biogas plants, I think, in Europe are operated, however, under mesophilic conditions up to more or less 50 degrees Celsius. As this process is biologically more stable, we have a greater biodiversity of the microorganisms and less costs for energy are involved. This is clear, I think. The second important parameter is the pH value, which is an important one for all microbial processes. And you can see here the optimum pH value for methanogenesis lies in the range of more or less neutral pH 6.8 to 7.5, but the previous phases, mainly hydrolysis and acid formations, are a little bit acidic one, and therefore we have to prevent it such low pH values, because they can have inhibitory effect on the microorganism, especially in the methanogenesis. The last one is the retention time. That means this time in which the substrate is in the fermenter. This depends on the temperature, the capacity of digestion tank, the concentration of the substrate in the reactor, the concentration of the active biomass, which make the transformation and the desired degree of degradation. This duration period can vary. We know from wastewater treatment, few hours, and for agricultural biogas plants up to 2 months. Coming, at least in this part of my talk, to the technical application, and we have to divide it two different principal solutions for anaerobic digestion. That means we have on the one hand the dry fermentation, on the other the wet fermentation. The dry fermentation means the substrate is fermented to a dry substance content up to 65%, whereas the wet fermentation means water is mashed into the sludge of approximately 5 up to 12% dry substance content. At the end, we have to state it that in principle, the same level of specific biogas yields can be reached from a substrate in both dry and wet fermentation plant. Why we shall deal with biogas? What can biogas? 1 cubic meter of biogas can cook 3 meals of a family of 5 or 6 persons. Can keep 1 biogas lamp of a luminosity equivalent of a 60-watt electric light burning for 6 to 7 hours. Can keep 1 horsepower motor for 2 hours and can generate 1.25 kilowatt electricity. But these are very fortunate, very good facts, but we have, in order to utilize biogas in unit power stations, we have to treat it. And this pre-treatment, or we say biogas processing, we have to see more in detail. First of all, we have to deal with sulfur. During the anaerobic microbial transformation process, there exist in various forms of sulfur and later of hydrogen sulfide will exist in biogas. This is for the humans very toxic, and also if you know that during oxidation of biogas in a unit power station, this hydrogen sulfide is converted to sulfate, and as sulfuric acid, it leads to significant corrosion process problems in the condensation zones. Therefore, we have desulfuring the biogas. And in the moment, we know 2 different, to contrast processes. This means a chemical desulfuring process, which can carry out as precipitation of hydrogen sulfate to bog iron ores, or on the other hand, much more ecologically, biological treatment in the fermenter heat itself, or in a connection reactor called biogas purifier. This biogas is supplemented with oxygen, and on surfaces or in the external reactors, the microorganisms will grow on this oxidation process. The second problem, or the second to solve problem, is the relative humidity of biogas, which is 100% because water is a result of the biogas process. And this humidity must reduce in order to protect unit power station for damage by installing a pipeline with condensate collectors. And the last one, which I not coming more into detail, are the elimination of carbon dioxide to get a higher methane content.
Yeah, you have 3 more minutes.
Thank you. Then I skipped the advantages because I think I have shown you the advantages earlier in my talk. Coming, and also this we have to skip. Coming to a very interesting fact, because we have made preliminary experiments with durian fruit in our lab. Here's a nice picture to my team with my colleague and 2 students dealing with this substrate. The fermentation tests will done with dried durian fruit from peels according to a standard in Germany of the Association of German Engineers called VDE, and will done around about 2 years ago. What we found there, without any extended optimization of the process, we found 383 cubic meter biogas as a standard volume per ton organic dry substance. And if we look to an input dry original substance, we found 329 cubic meter. As the comparative figures, my silage is shown, and we see there 600 cubic meter biogas per ton organic dry substance, and 200, round about 200 cubic meter biogas as a maize silage. And if we look further into these results, we found that the organically usable fraction of the durian fruit peels provide a gas yield of 64% of the same amount of organic dry substance corn silage, and the expected methane yield is around 200 cubic meter methane, corresponding to 1,920 kilowatt hours per ton organic dry substance, which can be utilized energetically. Measured by energy consumption per capita in Indonesia of 10,284 kilowatt hour per capita, this data according to the World Bank data of 214, the energy demand would be covered with 5 ton organic dry substance of these durian fruit peels. And therefore, the focus of our further experiments, and we hope we can do this further experiments, must be the improvement of both the preparation of the fruit for use as a substrate in the reactor, or the optimization of the biogas by using mixture of durian fruits and other fruits from Indonesia or from Germany. These are the end of my talk. Thank you for the attention. As a fan of Yoda, I will say your attention, I thank you. And any question do you have? Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Prof. Brewer, for such a very nice and great presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, we will move to the next speaker. The third speaker is Associate Professor Henry Isaac Elim. Prof. Elim is a lecturer at Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences and Associate Professor in Physics of Nanoscience, Nanotechnology, and Nanomedicine at Pattimura University. In 1995, he got his bachelor degree for science under scholarship of SIDA UDP in Canada from Gajah Mada University. In 2005, he completed his MS PhD in physics under the scholarship from National University of Singapore and NUS. And since 24th April 2015, he was appointed as the chairman of Nanotechnology Research Center, an innovative creation called as PPNRI, Lemlit, Pattimura University, Ambon. In Indonesia, Dr. Elim is currently among 50 best scientists of over 250,000 Indonesian researchers and scientists based on SINTA, RISTEC, Dicti, Index with Scopus, Web of Science, and H index of 25, and more than 2,470 citations by educating over 75 bachelor sciences in physics in the last 6 years. He also actively involved in publishing journal for science as an editor at Pattimura University. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Prof. Elim. Prof. Elim, you have 25 minutes. Unmute your voice, unmute.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you still enjoying this talk. I was very excited to hear very carefully the talk of Professor Joachim about biofuels and Professor Uta Brouwer about biogas. And today I would like to continue the additional information about another side of this kind of renewable energy. As we are physicists, we look from the multitasking physics. Why we do multitasking physics? Because as a human being, we are the multitasking creation. We can do many different jobs in the same time. For example, we can hear something while seeing something and feeling something and thinking something. They're all at the same time. So what I mean about the multitasking physics is like that. And by using this style of very high quality creation of the human being, we would like to apply to study the how to dig down and how to do some innovative work in expanding the renewable energy. Okay, the next slide, please. So this is how we started conducting our work. We started from two simple scientists, and the youngest one now he's already get his PhD from Kumamoto University. We built up our nanotech center in the last 6 years, and over there is our integrated laboratory. This is our vehicle to carry out our work. So we were the first scientists who built up the nanotech center in the eastern part of Indonesia, only by two simple scientists and 6 undergraduate physics students. And now we already have about over 75 graduated physics students, and many of them already started pursuing their master and PhD degree overseas. And next slide, please. So by having this vehicle, the integrated laboratory, what I mean as an integrated laboratory is that we have a very attractive and also creative living room in our laboratory. This creative living room connected to the teaching laboratory and our research laboratory. And behind our research lab, we have a nano medicine garden. We started to building it up in the last 3 years, since 2017. And then what have triggered us to carry out this energy mapping? It was when we were lucky by the presence of Professor Genske from Nordhausen University of Applied Sciences. He came here as a visiting professor. He taught us how to use the geoengineering to improve the Archipelago region, like in our Maluku province, consisted of over 1,340 small islands. And since that time, we thought, how do we contribute to do this kind of energy mapping? What we can do is based on our physics background. And just about few months before COVID spread it in Indonesia, there is a visiting scientist from Nordhausen. He's Indonesian. His name is Giovanni. He came to our lab, and I started to help him to collect all the data from about 27 institutions, many different institutions in Ambon. Almost all of the institutions in Ambon, we went and we collect all the data in order to analyze the possibility to expand the use of the renewable energy by understanding the energy mapping first, and then what we will do next. And also, there is a good news also from Professor Brouwer. Professor Uta just discovered very high biogas from the skin of durian. So we have a lot of durian in the Maluku Archipelago. So it will be a very good further projects if the government is really intended to get such kind of energy. I believe it will be a very good project to be implemented in the near future. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. This is the beginning, is the Indonesian style. When there's a visitor from overseas, normally they have to meet all the top leaders. So for example, when Giovanni came here to do the research work with us, he has to meet the dean, and then the dean will bring him to the rector part, and then later they will have a very good treat, nice lunch with us, and so forth. Next. Okay, I will be talking, the next step is about introduction. Next. Okay, so this is a whole picture of the world. And if we view from the above, from high above in the sky, so at night especially, it seems that the American area is the brightest on Earth at night, because you see there so many countries look like a bit dark from above. So that means this Earth really needs the energy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so if we, I will explain from the big view, and then I will go in our part. So the big picture first, and then from the big picture we take the small part to expand. So this is actually the energy in the world. The highest energy we have on Earth is nuclear energy, and the second one is renewable energy. The renewable energy itself is about 60 to 80%. So this we can carry out the multitasking electricity. Next. So so this is very good questions. Our Maluku Archipelago is a very small archipelago in Indonesia. It's about a prototype of Indonesia, because Indonesia consisted of 14,880 islands, and ours about 1,340 islands. So it's about 10% of the number of the island in the whole Indonesia. So it's like a prototype of Indonesia. So we can just like a David in order to give example to this giant Indonesia, for example. Next slide, please. So the question is, which one is better, the renewable energy or nuclear energy? Okay, so this according to the latest publication just a few weeks ago in Nature Energy. After investigating the data from 123 countries in the last 25 years, the researchers found that this kind of nuclear energy, the country like use the very big energy based on the nuclear energy, they cannot decrease the carbon problem. So, and while on the other side, the country who use the renewable energy, they improve handling the carbon problem. So it can help to handle the global warming. So this is the latest finding. Next slide, please. Thank you. German, for example, already identified at least this matrix consisted of 5 parameters: electricity consumption and production, heating and cooling, waste, renewable energy, and traffic. So from this parameter, we can make a matrix with a very specific content of the matrix. Then we can analyze what really significant point to be developed from these 5 different parameters. Next slide, please. Okay, so according to the world data, the low carbon energy generation in 2019 is from US, and the largest one is in India. So that means India has a big problem with this kind of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and so forth from vehicle and factory and so forth. Next slide, please. This is just an introduction. Okay, this is our contribution. So in our Nanotech Center, we started with the first 4 students and the graduate student to make the flexible battery. This battery will have energy by working on it. So there is no electricity will move without you do some treatment. Like for example, in our very thin this battery, by bending it, it can produce the electricity. So you can imagine when this kind of very thin battery, when it is moving like that, it can store the energy. So this is the idea how we make the battery that can make electricity, and the electricity can be stored in the battery storage. Okay, next, please. So the next part is about about energy mapping. Next. Okay, so according to the primary renewable energy resources in the whole Earth, we can see the big picture that there are at least 5 big players on Earth to be the frontier leaders in the country to apply this kind of renewable energy in America, in South of America, in Australia, in China, and also in the European countries. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, while in Asia, could you go back to the slide before? While in Asia, China has a big player in the use of the renewable energy. And that's why the industry is very, very highly developed. So we will learn from this kind of very, very good work of China. And we will think how to do that in our Maluku very, very small islands, over 1,000 islands. So what we can do is, for example, using the battery, and also after the mapping of the energy, collaborating with the Nordhausen, with Professor Genske and Giovanni, we maybe can develop the solar cell in our Pattimura University campus, so that we will have, you know, internal or intermaros energy. We can have our own energy ourselves, because the renewable energy, you really need to pay for the labor. The labor is the sun rays, the labor is the wind, the labor is the, for example, tidal wave and so forth. These all the renewable energy. So that's why we have to move to renewable energy, and also very good to maintain our environment. Next slide, please. Now we come to Ambon. So Ambon is the capital city of the Maluku province, and above the Ambon, there are 2 big islands. It's Buru Island and the Seram Island. You can see from the slide. And this is the data we get from, I and Giovanni went to the governor building, and the man who are in charge of this, he gave this original data, very good one. Next slide, please. Okay. So there's a big introduction, a big picture of the energy mapping, and now we move to multitasking physics. How we have to implement our ability, our physics, to take it out this kind of renewable energy. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the style we normally apply in our integrated laboratory. Even we are very simple, but we normally can use all of the garbage, the rubbish one. We change from, for example, from stone, we make it become super fiber, from the leaf, from the branch, from everything, from the skin of the crab or the prawn. We can also make battery material and so forth. So from nothing to be very important. Next slide, please. So this is the zoom of the former picture. This is our open air lab. If we want to produce a very good carbon material, In our lab on the 4th floor is open air, so we can do experiment there. So the smoke and the fire will be directly go to the sky. Next slide. So our open air lab, and this is the beauty of Pattimura University. Professor Joachim already came to our university. He took many good pictures. I saw his picture in front of the very big mosque. He will be smiling it's a green campus and also very pretty. You know, during the COVID time, maybe 2 to 3 days a week, I stay in my lab, do my work without disturbing from other people. In the morning, I wake up, I can enjoy my morning walking time. Took some picture with this laboratory coat. You see, very beautiful. Next. So this is also part of the renewable energy. Next slide. Okay, this is our nano medicine garden. So some of the students, they are interested to make the energy from the leaf, from the plant that can produce the not only the medicine but also the energy. Next slide, please. And this the first 2 students, they make the first biogas in our lab using the organic material by destroying it naturally with the bacteria, and then it will produce the gas, and then the gas will be measured daily, monthly, by losing the weight, but the gas is more produced. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the first 4 students do the flexible thin nanobattery in our laboratory, and above is our national physics journal. I make the cover when first time we came to visit the Germany. These all Indonesian students, they treated us very well. They cook very good food. They celebrate us. They make many dancing and so forth. So we were so honored to be there in Nordhausen. So it's a very good memory for us. Next slide, please. Okay, the question is how we do this. What best that Asia have in a particular renewable energy types? Okay, we will see. Next slide, please. In order to understand what does it mean, we have to do collaboration, because we realize if we do work alone, we are very limited in the technology and also in the another part of the knowledge. So what we do is we have a collaborating with the many scientists, especially from our German friends, is Professor Genske, Professor Brewer, Professor Fischer. We have an MOU with your Nordhausen University and Applied Sciences. And also I have another friend scientist who normally visit us at Pattimura University. It's Professor Reddy. Now he's already moved from National University of Singapore to Hydro-Quebec in Canada. And also Professor Jose Rajan in University of Malaysia, Pahang. These 2 guys, they're big player, #1 scientists in the nanobattery, especially molten salt synthesis and the supercapacitor. Next slide, please. Okay, so in Asia continent, the wind energy is mostly the biggest one used by the Kazakhstan Republic. And the next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Could you go back? Go back. Okay, so the next. Okay, so in general, the wind energy used on Earth is mainly by USA, China, and Brasilia, while the solar energy is mainly used by USA and China and Australia. So this is a big picture of our renewable energy on Earth. The next slide, please. And another renewable energy like hydropower, solar, wind, geothermal, bioenergy, wave and tidal wave. You can see there this increasing number of use of this kind of another renewable energies from United Kingdom or UK, and also the Brazil seems very steady on top. Next slide, please. Okay, the largest country who use the hydropower is America. So we see from the beginning, America, they already decreased the carbon problem in the country. They are the lowest on Earth now to handle this kind of carbon monoxide problem. This also, they already use the hydropower, a very big one among another country. Next slide, please. So you see from just in the last 50 years, the use of the hydropower is very dramatically increased on Earth. And last time we had a visitor from India. They have a very nice university in the Himalaya. Professor Bhaskar, he came here. He told us they have a very huge hydropower for their campus electricity. Next slide, please. So the question is how big the world use a particular renewable energy types. Next slide, please. Okay, so the solar energy on Earth is mainly, the largest one is USA country and Australia. So this the America continent and Australia continent. Okay, one is on the north and the other is on the south. While in the middle or among these two big continents, there is use of this kind of renewable energy, especially solar energy. Next slide, please.
Prof. Elim, you have 3 more minutes.
Oh, okay. So I have to move to my work. I give many backgrounds so much. Can you move? Because only 3 more minutes. Let us move. I will. Okay, this is about the relationship between the number of the increase of the population on Earth with the renewable energy. Move. Could you move, please? I will be focused in the last 3 minutes for my work. Move. Okay, so this is our work. Can you go back? So this is the output of our. Can you go back to the publication? Okay. So this is in the last 6 years in our nanotech center, especially related to the work of multitasking physics and this kind of energy storage, supercapacitor, and energy mapping. This is so at the beginning, 2 to 4 first years, we do the multitasking physics. We apply to nano herbal medicine, and then later on we also do collaboration with Professor Ray and Professor Jose. We produce our battery, and then also now we are working hard with the Nordhausen to have a good output with them in energy mapping. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so the beginning of our energy mapping started with by go inside to our scientists at Pattimura University, especially Professor Tony Shahaya. I and Giovanni came there. They are the leader of the geospatial in the eastern part of Indonesia. The Indonesia already supported very big data from the satellite and also the big server to record all the data. So we get the data from them. And this is the first energy mapping on the Ambon Island coming out from the data just roughly, because in the beginning we just want to see the rough resolution. And then later on, Giovanni and Professor Genske is working out to see deeper. For example, can see how big the solar energy in Ambon we can produce, how big the solar biofuel and biogas and so forth. It will be in a very high resolution. So it is just a preliminary work. And you see that the green part on the east, near my house here in the Waitatiri, there are many agricultural fields behind my house around here, many big forests. So that's why many agriculture there. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the first time we went to the south east of the Maluku, in the Aru region. Aru region consisted of 804 small islands, and the highest area of these 804 islands is 50 meters from the sea. So almost all there is flat. So we see from the airplane. This is our Professor Nus Sapteno project. He want to apply the law to protect the ordinary people in the area to have a good wealth by using the traditional law, and then they can sell the natural resources there. They get money, they can live with a better life. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is our work on the flexible tin battery. These 4 students, they are going to have a final thesis defense soon, maybe on coming Friday. So they use the garbage to make a battery. So you can see that by flipping the battery and the different angle can produce different electricity. The battery tin is about 1 millimeter. Next slide, please. So it's very flexible and also water resistant. Okay, so this is how I and Giovanni trip to visit about 27 institutions, many institutions in the whole Ambon within 2 weeks. We met many big leaders of the institution there in order to collect our data. Okay, next slide, please, because time is almost finished. We just last. Okay, this for example, when we want to map only the agriculture field in the Ambon Island only, any other fields. So this is the mark there. Next. Okay, so there are 5 important areas in the whole Maluku province. I already marked this, the data from the government. So it's very secret. This is my first time to show to the audience. From the Seram Island, and then another Seram, and then in this near the K place, and also near the Panimbar, and also near the over there. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Could you move to the last slide? Okay, maybe this is the last slide because time is up. We move to that. There are 12 very different. There are 12 strategy areas mapping from according to very high quality satellite data. So I got from the government this one. To the audience to see. So this 12 area very good to apply the multitasking physics to exploit the renewable energy there. Okay, so this is the conclusion. By conducting research work, the human being problems may be solved. So I don't need to mention again the former explanation I already explained before. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Patti, as a moderator. I believe time already up.
Okay, thank you very much for Prof. Elim for such a nice presentation. Very good one. And ladies and gentlemen, we will move to the last speaker, which is Associate Professor E. Wayan Sutapa. Prof. Wayan is a lecturer at Department of Chemistry of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Pattimura University. In 1998, he got his bachelor degree from Chemistry Department at Hasanuddin University. In 2018, he enrolled the sandwich program for chemistry at University of Miyazaki, Japan. In 2019, he completed his doctoral degree from Chemistry Department at Hasanuddin University. As a professional, he is actively conducting several research projects in the field of chemistry, especially for biodiesel. He also has a patent product for biodiesel production using seagrass with calm cell as catalyst. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Prof. Sutapa. Prof. Sutapa, you have 25 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Patti, for your kind introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning for Professor Fischer and Professor Bauer in Germany. As the last speaker, maybe I will be the best or the bad speaker, but in this time I want not the best or the bad speaker, but I want to give the another insight about Maluku province as Archipelago with the many islands. So in the last presentation, I want to make a collaboration maybe with the Professor Fischer or Professor Bauer. If in Germany you can serve or you can offer the high technology, but in Maluku, from Maluku, we can offer many kind of resources for feedstock, biofuel, biomass, or oil, or starch. Thank you. I will to start my presentation. In this time, I want to talk about the potential natural bioresources as biofuel feedstock from Maluku province. I will start our talk in this time from data outlook of energy in Indonesia. Based on the data outlook energy of Indonesia, we can see the at least any 8 kind of energy will support energy demand for Indonesia. This is data taken from the 2018, where all the around of the Indonesian consumption energy at least 879 million barrel. Based on this data, we can see the biodiesel and biomass support or serve only a little % from all the kind of energy. This is a current energy supply million barrel. Our nation still depend on the oil. The second one on the coal and gas. Our nation also using the biomass and biofuel. This is a projection of our government, projection energy supply, our government of Indonesia. We can see from this graph, we can know that in the 2050, our government still depend on the energy come from the coal. I'm very interesting from presentation from Professor Fischer. They actually coal not only used directly as energy, but we can convert to gas. I think this is support the data for Indonesia government. So the next time the coal can we use the feedstock for gas energy. This is interesting for us. The Indonesia import energy ratio. Indonesia will have the ratio energy import energy until 2050 will be 33%. What the meaning this fact? This fact state to us that Indonesia will be as the importer, pure importer the next time, the next year, at least at 2050. So we must prepare ourselves. We must get the other resource energy. At least based on this projection, we can see one of potential energy is geothermal. Indonesia have many source of geothermal energy. In every islands have the geothermal energy. Like in Maluku also, we have a big source for geothermal energy. But until now, we in our government not yet explore this one. As Professor Helen said, Maluku have many islands, but in this time, I want to focus on our area. Our area is consisting at least 92.4% DUSN, and 7.6% is land area. So most our area is ocean. So based on this mapping, how we can to offer resource for energy production from small islands from the big big area with the ocean. This is, I think, the challenge for us and the opportunity for us from Maluku. Based on this fact, we have at least 3 kind of energy biomass or biomass resource from Maluku. Besides, as earlier said by the Professor Elim, we can use the wine, we can use the geothermal, but in this talk, I want to focus on the biomass. Although Professor Fischer said biomass or biofuel have many limitations, but we know in Indonesia, our government to always push to increasing utilization about the biomass energy, renewable energy from biomass like palm oil, because we have many resource of palm oil. As we know, in Indonesian government have ideas to get the biodiesel B100s, 100 in this year or next years. So maybe this is one challenge for me, one opportunity for us to conduct and renewable energy from biomass. In this time, I want to show at least 4 kind biomass resource for biodiesel, for biofuel raw material. The first one is seaweed. Seaweed we can convert, we can use to produce the bioethanol. Seagrass can produce biodiesel. Microalga, we can produce the biodiesel and bioethanol. Calopilum inopilum, with the oil content more than 45%, we can produce, we can use the feedstock for biodiesel production. Simango, this is one plant can acid to growth in our coastal Simango, oil content more than 35%. This is very potential to as feedstock to produce the biodiesel production. Based on this raw material, we can divide our biofuel, biodiesel, and bioethanol. Bioethanol, as we know, ethanol is derived from a vegetable ingredient that contains sugar. This color has liquid form, clear, strong odor, dissolved in gasoline, and high octane value. In biodiesel and bioethanol production, at least we have 3 kind of route to produce the bioethanol. Sugar can directly produce to bioethanol, amylum, then convert to can produce to bioethanol, or seaweed convert to sugar, and we can produce bioethanol. This is a production scheme of bioethanol production. We can use sugar, starch, lignocellulose, etc. One of advantage when we produce the bioethanol, produce the bioethanol, we not only get the bioethanol, but in order by product, we also the fertilizer. We get the biogas, and fertilizer we can use in agriculture, maybe biogas we can use for combustion in our family. How to produce bioethanol from seaweed? The produce bioethanol from seaweed is very simple, but in theoretically, but in experiment is challenging. Need more effort, I think. Seaweed, then hydrolysis enzymatic, then we conduct the fermentation enzymatic. When we get the bioethanol, by the distillation process, we get the bioethanol, pure bioethanol. This is a hydrolysis unit. At least we need the process temperature between this is a fermenter. Fermenter is container with process of fermentation will be conducted. We convert sugar into the alcohol. The fermentation process we must take in sterile condition, and the temperature range start from 32 degrees Celsius. This is distillatory. When we get the crude bioethanol, we have to use the distillatory to separating ethanol from water based the difference boiling point. So when the last product, we can get the pure bioethanol. The next, our discuss to continue to the biodiesel. The biodiesel is alternative fuel for diesel engine. Many advantages when we use biodiesel. Biodiesel is renewable, non-toxic, and biodegradable, or more easy broken down by microorganisms. Can use directly for diesel engine without require modification. Has a high lubricating effect so that the engine is durable. Biodiesel production can conducted by this process. Oil or fat, we conducted the pre-treatment and give the methanol and catalyst, and then the transfiguration process will be conducted. Then washing, drying, and biodiesel will be produced in the last step. We also get the glycerin as byproducts. Pre-treatment conducted if the free fatty acid content higher than 1.5%. Why the FFI content should be lower than 1.5%? Because FFI will be trigger soap formation. Soap will be make the Spartan process difficult. So we must measure, we must determine FFA content when we use the one oil to produce the biodiesel production. The second one is water content. Water content of oil should be less than 1%. The percent of water will be great soap and increases FFA. When we have oil, or we get oil with the free fatty acid more than 1.57, 1.5%, and water content more than 1%. How to solve this one? Actually, when we are reacting between methanol and oil, and we using catalyst, base catalyst, we can produce the salt, because any water or any free fatty acid will be initiated the process. So how to solve this one? We must make esterification. We must make pre-treatment by esterification process. Now, how to decrease the water content? We should evaporate the raw material to reduce the water content. This is a transvacation process, so general transvacation process when we want to produce the biodiesel production. Waste oil or oil crop microalgae or oil from palm, we put on the reactor and give the methanol and the catalyst. We will get the crude glycerol and crude biodiesel, and washing with using water, we can get the biodiesel. This is the route for biodiesel production. This is transvacation very familiar for us to produce the biodiesel production, to produce the biodiesel, triglyceride, methanol, and use sodium hydroxide catalyst. Will be get the fatty ester and glycerin. Washing biodiesel, the last step of our biodiesel production, we must washing biodiesel. The purpose of washing is to clean the remaining impurities, make biodiesel neutral, and remove the residual glycerol. We also make a drying process.
Prof. Wayan, you have 2 more minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes. Thank you. I think this one, this I will do my most. The effects of microalgae, I think the most of content, lipid content microalgae is above the 50%, very fast grow. The microalgae breeding need time until maybe 10 days. We can produce the product. The productivity reaches 120,000 kilogram of the diesel per hectare annually. It's more than 20 times palm oil than 80 times compared to castor. This is microalgae we can develop to produce the lipid content. This is I think the first my patent in biodiesel production is from Padina SP. Why I make patent for this process? Because the biodiesel production from Padina SP I never find out in the world, so I must patent it. So next time we can make the one research for us in Pattimura University. I think this is several kind of another feedstock for biodiesel with the FAMI content and biodiesel properties. The last one, this is the latest my research in biodiesel production using the carburetor of the lamp. All the parameter properties of biodiesel have according to the ISTM standard for biodiesel. I think this is my presentation today. Any question we go to discuss. The times back to Professor Patti. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Sutapa, for sharing very important work from you to all of us. And ladies and gentlemen, now we move to the question and answer session, and I think I have some questions here. At least there are around 4 questions for Prof. Fischer and 1 question for Prof. Brewer, 1 for Prof. Elim, and maybe later for Prof. Sutapa. So I will read, or maybe I will read the question. The first one for Professor. This is from Ms. Watimena. Yeah. What are the advantages and disadvantages of algae biofuel? And then from Ms. Risa Kota, from your research experiences about biofuels, what types of plants that you recommended to develop for biofuels? What important ingredients indicate that the plant's very potential as a biofuel? And then also from Mr. Iswayudi, according from OPEC, world oil needs in 2040 is 120 million barrels per day. So can biodiesel, especially alga biodiesel, work to cover it? If it is possible to cover the world oil needs, what is the strategy for the future? And the last question for Professor from Mr. Grimaldi, can we start using renewable energy individually? And that's for Professor. And then there's one question for Prof. Brouwer from Ms. Watimena. Is biogas technology expensive? What is the negative impact of biogas technology on environmental and human health issue? And also there's one question from Prof. Elim, also from Ms. Watimena. After doing the energy mapping in Maluku, in your opinion, what should be done next? Another question for Prof. Elim from Ms. Sihasale. What are the challenges in applying flexible nanobattery for everyday use? What is the biggest challenge to produce the renewable energy from algae in large scale? Okay, that's all the questions we have. Maybe we start from Professor.
Yes, Professor Patti, thank you very much, and also thank you to the quite large audience, as I saw, for your interest and the questions. To the first question, I think it also become evident that Dr. Sutapa is much more an expert on algae biomass than I, so maybe he can add later on some aspects regarding to advantages and disadvantages. Advantage of algae of aquatic biomass, I think it becomes evident from our last presentation. If you just look at the situation in your lovely Maluku Island, that you have roughly 92% of coastline and only 8% of solid land, so to say. So here, of course, we have the advantage that we can use the coast, the near coast, large areas of coast for producing a very useful resource, biomass, which of course on a limited area of land on an island will not be possible. So we have the advantage that we have quite high yields which can be produced, which we can gain by using the algae. On the other hand, algae are also quite, let's say, simple species. That means they have not so high demand, for instance, for fertilizers, for pesticides, than other plants which we are cultivating on land. So this can also be a huge advantage. The disadvantage is, of course, Mother Nature also has limitations. That means, for instance, microalgae also need sunlight for growing. That means we have limitations with respect to the water depth. We have limitations with the productivity of the systems. And from a technical viewpoint, as an engineer, questions regarding how can we harvest these microalgae efficiently and how can we process them into products, be it biofuels or other products, still have to be answered. Hoppala, I hope that I'm still online. because the picture just went away, but nevertheless, I would like to continue.
Yeah, you still.
Yes, okay. So the question is the economical side of the story. Yes. Here again, if we want to use these raw materials on a technical basis, we have to look in the process chains. And here, of course, dealing with aquatic biomass, with algae, still imposes, or still a lot of questions have to be answered. But the prospects, from my point of view, especially for island communities, are very, very good. So far, maybe to the first question. The second one, what type of plants? Well, this highly depends, of course, on the climatic region. And if we go to tropical countries like your country, then of course we have a very big advantage compared to our moderate country, that you can harvest biomass all over the year. Here in Germany or in Europe, we have only one harvest. Now it's autumn and winter, so nothing is growing. Whereas, for instance, in the tropical country, we have the possibility that we can grow and harvest material all over the year. Then we have to look to the yield. That means how much biomass can be harvested from a certain area of land. And there are, of course, species which produce very much biomass, for instance, sugarcane, for instance, also some grass types, miscanthus. And of course, the question, what do we want to do with the material? Is it being used for, let's say, incineration purposes? Is it being used for producing biofuels or biogas? As it becomes evident from all the presentations today, different technology pathways have different demands for the composition of the biomass. For instance, if you want to produce biogas, you look for a high gas production rate. If you look into biofuels, you look, for instance, for a high oil or protein content. And so the question cannot be answered on a general basis, but also always with respect to one, again, what are the limitations of the natural system? What can we grow? Also take into account, again, maybe fertilizers, pesticides is of significance. And on the other hand, what is the intended use of the biomass? And then we have a broad variety of plants, and we cannot say this is a perfect one and the other one not so interesting. Biodiversity is also, with respect to bioenergy, of high significance. There's not a monoculture, but to look how can we have get a very good mixture of different plants for different purposes and different characteristics. Maybe so far to question number 2, which is of course a very broad question and maybe demands for a long explanation. Third one, oil substitution. Again, I think the question is very often asked, but be a little bit careful. Renewable energies demand for let's say, composition of different energy carriers. Each renewable energy, be it solar, wind, biomass, geothermal energy, has its strengths and weaknesses. And we cannot answer all our energy questions on our planet by using one specific type of renewable energies. Of course, it is not possible to substitute all the oil demand, even the oil demand in the transport sector, just by using biodiesel. This is not possible. Short example, just for my students, I did a very rough assumption. So if we use all the arable land which is available in Germany, then we can provide sufficient biodiesel for our diesel car fleet. But at the end of the day, this means we have nothing to eat. So the question is, can you drive your car, or have you something to eat? So this is of course not viable and not possible. So we have to come first of all to a reduction in the energy demand, becoming more efficient. And then we have to look what are the, again, specific strengths and weaknesses of our energy carriers, of the renewable energies. And so by and by, we come to a new mixture of energy carriers over a very long period. Yeah? So don't expect that this transition from conventional to new energies can be done within, let's say, 10 years. Maybe it will last until the end of the century, but we must start today. And this is, let's say, a global challenge to find out what is the best substitution in a specific area of application, be it transport, be it space heating, be it power production, to include renewable energies. Yes, so this is a so-called sector coupling. How can we combine the different sectors of our energy system? National energy system, but also, of course, a local energy system. Last question. Individual use of renewable energies. Yes, of course, this is the big advantage of renewable energies, that they can be used on a local basis, starting from a private household, which can provide maybe part or all of its electricity demand from maybe a PV cell or a PV system, or a region which combines PV systems with wind energy and again biomass maybe for transport. So this is the big advantage, that renewable energies are or can be used or have the biggest profit if they are being used locally on a decentralized manner, and not as we are doing it now with conventional energies, by building large power plants, large oil refineries, and so on. So here, the chance for individual use and also for individual economic benefits, using your own resources and transferring them into energy, is maybe one of the largest benefits of all renewable energies. Yes. So far, maybe from my part, for these 4 questions, I hope that I answered them more or less satisfyingly and correctly. If not, maybe you can also readdress me or with other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Fischer. And we move next to Prof. Brewer to answer the question.
So thank you again for the question, and I will answer the first one with an additional slide. What I get not into what I put not into my talk, but the first question was, is this expensive? We have to differentiate between the simple one and the more developed one. And first of all, you need a fermenter and some aggregates beyond. But of course, we need some sensors. Yes, for this, I have to answer the question with yes, of course. But the second question, what you ask me is, what for risks are there? I have read some papers, and so I found some main risks, to my point of view, within the development of biogas in Indonesia, and investment risk. I already answered it, and the sixth one is for me the answer of the second question from you. If we have a fully worked and definite safe reactor, then we have not await some leakages and some problems. But if it is not the case, then it could be that we have environmental harmful leakages, maybe the exposition of biogas that for 50% is methane, and you know what methane is. And the other one is the leakage of the digestion residue, which could be very acid, and if it flows into water in sea or in lakes, then we have some problems with the fishes and other forms of life into the water. And therefore, this could be possible, and therefore it is necessary to know all the facts what I mentioned in my talk. But I will say the same as my colleague before. We have to start now, first with planning, first with looking for good substrates, for good mixtures of substrates, how to prepare the substrate, and then we can choose the right aggregates for the right fermenter, the size and the pre-treatment, as we have to cut the substrate, and all together. And in addition, with transparency to the population around, then we have a good chance to take the population with us, with the engineers, with the scientists, with the stakeholders, to develop biogas in Indonesia with a good price, not also the price of the investment, but also the money for maintain all the machines, all the sensors, and also to supply the biogas or the electricity or the heat in grids and use it as the supply of energy and heat for also for local environment and local population. I think and I hope that I could answer your question, and if it's not the case, you can address me too or send me a mail. You have can choose a contact on Professor Elim maybe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Brewer. Before we move to Prof. Elim, I will read the question for Prof. Sutapa from Mr. Harusia. If we make a biodiesel from agriculture, we know that it's not only about dependent on the quantity, but the method of disposal use. What is your opinion about this? Also for Mr. Prof. Sutapa, from Mr. Siloy, what factors that affect the development of microalgae as biofuels? And now we move to Prof. Elim. You can answer the question first before Prof. Sutapa.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Patti. I had two questions, one from Dr. Cynthia Watimena and the other one from Mrs. Saleh. The first question is about the renewable energy. What next? From Professor Dr. Cynthia Watimena. After we are doing the mapping of the energy in Maluku, before we continue to different area, because mapping energy is very complicated. Professor Genske is the most experienced scientist in the world who did this source energy mapping in Africa and then in Germany, Switzerland, and near German country over there. I saw his latest book before he left Ambon in 2018. He gave one chapter of the book, just published in Elsevier. It is very complicated. Many different type of renewable energy, many different parameters, and so forth. What we are doing now, we have to finish Ambon Island first as a prototype. The complete evaluation of the energy mapping in the whole, just in the whole Ambon Island first, before we continue to different islands in the whole Maluku Archipelago region. So as I shown you in my presentation, it's just not the complete one, but Giovanni, one day after he returned to Germany, he just maybe a few weeks ago, he sent me the good data, but because it is still very secret, but I will tell you the good news. The good news of Professor Genske and Giovanni work is that they found that the Ambon Island has a very good possibility to use just intramuros energy, or we can have our own renewable energy without depending on the other energy from outside of the Ambon Island. So what we do next is that we can implement the technology to absorb this all renewable energy that we have in the whole Ambon in order to be intramuros energy area as a prototype of the Maluku province. And the second one is from Sihasale. What's the biggest challenge next for this kind of developing of the renewable energy research. Of course, the biggest challenge now is how to restore this kind of energy, how to absorb this all kind of renewable energy, which is free from nature, from the wind, from the sun rays, from this all biodiversity, like a biogas and this biofuel and so forth. So that's why we do collaboration with Professor Reddy and Professor Jose, who is expert in the nano battery and the supercapacitor, so that we will be able to do by ourselves how to restore this all energy in the battery. And then from the battery, we can use the electricity when the dark is coming after the sunset in the late afternoon. So this is the biggest chance for us to develop this kind of very, very good and very high capacity storage. And in addition, because now the world already used the lithium-ion battery. Lithium-ion battery is the world best storage because it can reach about fourfold the highest among the other battery. But the problem, lithium-ion battery is very sensitive to the oxygen on air, so it cannot be leaking in the packets of the battery. Once there is a leaking, then the lithium-ion battery is not function well. It will the voltage that has been absorbed will be decreased very dramatically. That's the problem of the lithium-ion battery. So that's why we are doing the garbage or the rubbish to make a flexible the thin battery, and then we can use a mechanical thing to absorb the energy. The problem we also already observed in the last 4 months. We observed our device it also has a leaking problem. After there's a just small leaking, the air will come into our thin battery. Then the battery become permanent battery. So we don't like the permanent battery. We like the flexible one. So it will absorb the energy stored. But when it becomes permanent, after it stores this all the charge, then it will die. So this is not good one. So this is a problem. But it's a challenge. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Elim, for the answer. And now we move to Prof. Sutapa. I have another one additional question from Beryl Palapesi. As we know, the catalyst affects on the conversion of fatty acid to biodiesel. In the process of conversion of fatty acids into biodiesel, is it affected by the type of catalyst, such as metal oxide and porous material? Is there another factor? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Professor Patti. I want to answer one by one the question from the participant. First one, I want to answer the question from Haswan Harusia. It might biodiesel from agriculture. We know that it's only about the dependent on the quantity, but the postal user, yeah. Maybe the postal user in this case, you mean that how to dispose the byproduct from biodiesel production. Biodiesel production, we have at least three kind process. First one, we can use the catalyst base, homogeneous and acid homogeneous. Another one is we can use the heterogeneous catalyst. The disposal are resulted by product. There is glycerin and wastewater. This two kind of the biodiesel byproduct. If we use the basic catalyst homogeneous on acid catalyst homogeneous, we also produce the remaining of catalyst in our waste oil. So how to dispose all this what we can do it. how can we can resolve this problem? Now, as we know in Indonesia, one of scientists in Indonesia had been produced the one catalyst from the heterogeneous catalyst. The name is catalyst merah putih. Will have the efficiency until 99%, can convert to palm oil to be the biodiesel product. But the byproduct from this process only glycerin. No glycerin and wastewater. Wastewater maybe we can reusable again, or we can make a process like another waste. So very easy. I think my opinion is this is my opinion for this one. For the second question, what the factor that affect the development of microalgae as they feel? Microalgae, if we want to grow in our country, especially in Ambon, it's very easy because sunlight in our area is in province Maluku province is every time we get the sunlight. So we only need the reactor to grow, and we need the several nutrients. So very easy. But why until now our government didn't to do or take biofuel from the microalgae? I think this depend on the political will of our government. So maybe next time, if the microalgae is if other source of oil is maybe is low, they will be see microalgae as the biofuel feedstock production. Maybe. The last question about the catalyst. As we know, the catalyst affect on the conversion biodiesel. The process conversion in the biodiesel is affected by that catalyst. Yeah, I think catalyst have catalyst in this case, in this biodiesel production is very important because catalyst will be make sure that the immiscible reactant between oil and methanol can be immiscible reactant. So this is this important role of catalyst. In biodiesel catalyst, as we said earlier, that we can use the homogeneous catalyst or heterogeneous catalyst. Heterogeneous catalyst, I think the potential in the next catalyst for production biodiesel. So in this biodiesel production, we can choose the heterogeneous catalyst. By using the heterogeneous catalyst, we can reduce the byproduct, and we can reduce the wastewater from the process. So based on my opinion, in the next biodiesel product may be very potentially if we use the catalyst, heterogeneous catalyst. I think there is any factor. Another factor, as we said in my slide in my presentation, another factor is oil. The oil is depend on the FFA content and the water content. Yeah, the new information we get from the Pertamina, this factory from who responsible for produce and produce the oil in Indonesia. That they said the new problem from biodiesel is any some of bacteria on the bottom of container when the biodiesel put in on the container. So this I think the challenge for us to how to make the biodiesel with no bacteria in the next time when the biodiesel put in the one container. I think the post catalyst and the oil and how to make the biodiesel free from bacteria when the put in the one container. I think that is my answer. Maybe the time back to the Professor Patti. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sutapa, for the answer. And ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of the talk session. I would like to thank for all the speakers, Prof. Fischer and Prof. Brewer from Germany, and Prof. Elim and Prof. Sutapa from Pattimura University, Ambon. And I would like to thank for everybody, for participants to come this afternoon until this evening with us. So I will give back the microphone to the MC.
Okay, thank you, Pak Philippus. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we come to the next session, this time I would like to give chance to each speaker to give their closing statement. Once again, I would like to give chance to each speaker to give their closing statement. So let's begin with Prof. Fischer. Sir, please give your closing statement. Time is yours.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. First of all, I would also express my gratitude, my thanks to all of you at Pattimura University, especially also to the computer department for providing us with such an interesting afternoon from your part, morning from our part, and that it was really possible without any, let's say, really difficulties to convey the informations across across most part of our planet. So thank you very much. It was very interesting. And my closing statement, I think we recognized, of course, what was mentioned also by Professor Sutapa, that cooperation, that sharing of knowledge and experience is maybe one of the key elements for success. Also, Professor Elim addressed this for the further dissemination of renewable energies. Basically, we have all the same problems: how to ensure reliable energy supply to our people, yes, to a nation, to a region. And we have different pathways which can be performed. And so I think maybe also this meeting today should be the continuation of the good and excellent cooperation between Pattimura University and our university, even in times of Corona crisis, where maybe personal visits are much more complicated than before. But nevertheless, let's take the chance to work together, and then we can have a very big profit. And from my point of view, it would be very interesting also to assist you in the dissemination of renewable energies in your archipelago on Ambon Island. And with this potential analysis performed by Professor Genske, a first valuable step had been performed. And again, I would be very happy if we can continue this very good cooperation within the near future. So thank you very much once again for this very interesting afternoon or morning.
Well, thank you, Professor. Now we continue to give the chance to Prof. Brewer to give the closing statement. So, Professor, time is yours.
Yeah, what could I say what Joachim not said? He said a lot what I will be supported, what I will be subscribed, and I was very honored that I could hear inside the webinar putting my position to biogas. And as Joachim already said, we have all the same problems, but my wish is a further development of cooperation between our two universities. And for this wish, I will do a lot, and hope that we have soon, with very good and promising results, further webinar. And for this, I will develop my point biogas, especially for such regions like Indonesia or Asia, that we have to look to further regions outside of Europe, outside of Germany, and therefore I hope that we have a very fruitful development in the future. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you all for hearing and enabling us to have this fine and successful webinar. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Professor. Now, I would like to give the chance to Professor Elim to give the closing statement. So, sir. Professor Elim, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Mr. Moderator. I was very exciting, and I'm still excited because all the speakers are very energetic, and the audience, they're still carefully watching and learning from all of us. This is my first international webinar in this year. So it's very excited for me, and it's a very good beginning for Pattimura University to advance the science and technology by using the science and technology devices, not only face-to-face meeting, but also this kind of we call it a daring system or online system. So we already did a face-to-face meeting with our collaborator from Nordhausen. Now we do the daring conference. So it's a very good hybrid system in order to improve, and later we can implement this kind of renewable energy in our island first as an example. And particularly Pattimura University. If Pattimura University can implement this whole idea from Professor Joachim, Professor Uta, from the skin durian to be very good biofuel or biogas, and from all of us, I think very good example for Indonesia. We are very successful from Ambon. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Elim. And finally, it is time for Dr. Iwayan Sutapa to deliver the closing statement. Sir, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I am very appreciating for the international office of Pattimura University who have given me opportunity, who give me chance to deliver my experience, my research of biodiesel and bioethanol. But I know my research, my experience for this research not until now still need to expand. They need to extend this. So as Professor said to me that he will give me to time or to chance for my collaboration research. I'm very happy, and hopefully the next time, if pandemic COVID will stop, maybe I want to discuss again with the Professor Fischer, because in Maluku we have many natural resources can be converted and produced to be the biodiesel or bioethanol. This is, I think, the chance for us to use to explore our natural resources from Maluku. The last time I want to say thanks for the Dean of Faculty Mathematics and Natural Science for the opportunity for me to deliver our experience in biodiesel and bioethanol research. Thank you, Professor Uta, Professor Fischer. Thank you for your attention and kind, and thank you for the committed webinar in this time. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Well, thank you very much to our speakers. Kami mohon bantuan Bapak Ibu agar dapat menyalakan kameranya karena kita akan masuk pada sesi foto bersama. Sekali lagi kami mohon perhatian bagi Bapak Ibu yang mematikan kameranya, mohon dinyalakan kameranya karena Pak Evan akan mengambil foto kita bersama.
Ya, mohon maaf Bapak Ibu. Tahan posisi, mohon senyum dalam hitungan 1, 2, 3. Oke, mohon maaf sekali lagi. Saya akan mengambil foto sekali lagi. Mohon menunggu sebentar. Oke, dalam dalam hitungan 1, 2, 3. Smile. Smile. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Pak Evan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we close this webinar, I would like to give chance to the Dean of Mathematics and Natural Sciences Faculties to deliver the closing speech. Therefore, to Bapak Profesor Dr. Peter Kakisina, SPD MSI, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, MC. Good afternoon.
Pak Dekan, mohon maaf, boleh di-unmute mikrofonnya, Pak?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's webinar. I believe that all of us have received many beneficial insight and knowledge from today's webinar. I strongly suggest that we have taken important point from the presented material for future development or renewable energy, especially for us in Maluku as an archipelago region which has so many small islands. You once again, thank you very much for the speaker, special for Professor Johann Fischer and Professor Ute. Dankeschön. Thank you also to the participant for participating actively until the end of today's webinar. I repeat myself, hope that all of us learn something new today. And by saying thanks to God Almighty, I officially close today's webinar. See you in the next webinar. Keep safe and healthy. Goodbye. See you. Thank you. Danke untuk Pak Wayan sama Pak Elim. Terima kasih untuk International Office.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we close this webinar, I would like to remind you that you should fill the attendance list as sent to you. Once again, don't forget to fill the attendance list that's sent to you via Zoom. So once again, thank you very much for your participation from the very beginning until the very last. We will meet again in the next webinar series. Keep safe and keep healthy, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.
Goodbye, thank you. Okay.
Prof. Brewer, Prof. Fischer, thank you. Prof. Elin, Prof. Wayan, terima kasih banyak.
Thank you. Good
Thank you
afternoon
very
for
much.
you.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
afternoon,
thank you.
good evening.
Prof. Brewer, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Professor.
Yeah, yes, sorry. Yeah.
Could I get your email? Maybe next time I want to discuss about.
Yes. Email is quite simple. It's just my name, Joachim s.fischer.
Or maybe any at you send at Elim, yeah, Professor Elim.
Elim has my, of course,
Oh,
he
yeah,
has
no
my
problem.
email address.
It's
Yes,
okay,
he has
okay.
all
Yeah,
the
thank you.
information. Yes, this
Oh,
is
okay.
much easier.
Thank you, Professor.
Yes,
Thank you.
I would like, yes, appreciate really if you can stay in contact. Yes, it would be very interesting. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Hmm?
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice evening. Evening already.
Yeah,
Evening. Yes.
good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Terima kasih Pak Evan.
Terima kasih Pak Wayan, Pak Pati, terima kasih
Bye-bye semua.
Bye,
Ya.
Prof.
Terima kasih Pak Pati.
Prof. Fischer. Bye, Prof. Brewer.
Bagi Bapak Ibu yang belum mengisi absen, silakan mengunjungi link yang ada pada kolom chat. Bisa langsung diisi. Ya, terima kasih.